Hey everybody, Phil here with another interesting interview for you from a fellow Quantic EMBA cohort member, Vincent Stocklin. Vincent lives in Italy, dresses very snazzily, certainly raised the bar for anybody who wants to come on this show in the future. And not only that, what a fascinating life story. I know I shouldn't give it away, but how can I not give it away here? Starts out as a reporter, goes and sees all of these fascinating places and fascinating people, and is so curious about people, he decides, as you do, to take a degree in psychology to better understand the human mind. And from there, it's entrepreneurship and now being an executive coach, and you can find him at vincentstocklin.com. But enough of me, on to the interview, and I'll be back afterwards. Well, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So you just had the wonderful, exciting markets and economies
presentation to be
yes.
done for yesterday. That was it, exactly. That was a nice weekend to finish with. Yes.
Oh my. That was surprisingly difficult, I found.
Yes. Well, that's one of the things I find quite interesting in the way the Quantic teaching or learning is built. Because we all are adults and we all are quite experienced and, let's say, seasoned learners. So it's not so easy, or it's easy to get us bored. And with such project, I caught myself really diving in, wanting to discover things. And maybe that's one of the first time since the beginning 3 months ago that now I learned so much and I had no teacher. Just by myself, right? Whatever the outcome of this presentation for the marking and so on. But I really, when I finished it, wow. And that was from how to present it, how to build the graphs, what to choose to explain, right? This role play of presenting such a project to whatever the scenario was quite interesting. I don't know how you felt it.
Yeah, it was the same, up until this, I don't want to say it was easy because then I'll get myself in trouble, but it wasn't too difficult really. But this one, the presentation, the exam was a little bit difficult because I was trying to be very careful because I was nervous about this exam. Yeah. But the presentation, for me, this was the first time we kind of jumped from the theory to the thing, to the real world. And I had a really tough time with that. The theory is easy because you have all the numbers and you can do all, but when you're presented with something and you don't have that much data really, and then I was like, oh no, what should I be talking about? Yeah, it was surprisingly difficult. And like you say, I think this is the one that I learned the most from.
Yes. I will remember all the theories I'm used there and all how to build the graphs and also to choose how to present that, because the short time frame we should have been doing that is also quite demanding, like maximum 10 minutes for what this is a huge project. And usually, as I always say, it takes a long time to be short, right?
Yes.
Because it can be long. 1 hour would be a lot easy because you speak about everything and you explain that, but then you need to really choose and focus on some things. So yes, that's one of the elements that, and I totally on board with you saying that I'm not saying it's what easy, it was a bit more classical. I still find the exams quite demanding, right? In the way of the questions, in the phrasing of the question. They are tricky sometimes. Even if I'm well prepared, I make mistakes just because I just didn't, understood properly or figure it out exactly what was the question.
Yes.
So that's one of the things I noticed. I wouldn't say that's a gap, but the smart cases we are having at the end of every lessons, they are fine. I do them quite always very well, above the 80% we need to reach. The exams, it's another story. It's quite stressing, and I consider they go one step deeper than the smart cases. So
I agree. And also, you're not the first person who said, it's about sometimes the wording of the questions. And I don't know anything about you, but I can, from the way you talk, I'm going to guess that English isn't your first language. And I've spoken to quite a few other people who English is not their first language. And even for me, and I think I'm quite well versed in the nuance of English, there were some things I thought, what do they actually mean there?
Exactly. Right. Absolutely. Right. In order to say yes, to agree, you need to say no. Right. To
Yes.
the question in a way. Right.
Yeah. And so there were a
Yes. Well.
couple of times on this one, specifically this exam, where I
Yes.
went, I'm not sure I don't even know how to look up what they mean because I'm not exactly sure.
So, yeah. So that was the guessing and mistakes. So that was the other way around. Yes. But to defend it,
Hmm.
and that's one of the very important points I have. The level of expectation being, I won't even say quite high, being high, gives me the reason why I choose this one. So it's the opposite of saying, yeah, that's just, a little walk in the sun. No, I need to study. I need to do the work. I need to spend hours. Like, I think that my calculation is more than, it's like medium 10 hours a week, but some weeks 20 and other weeks we have less, but that's like
Yes.
almost 2 hours on a working day to study, to learn from, or to work on projects. And in a way, I like it. And
Hmm.
to answer the question about the phrasing of the exam, yes, that's the main goal of any MBA. It's about having an international
Yeah.
cohort, right? And we need to be up to the level. And that's part of, yes, it's not our first language. It's difficult, but life is difficult, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's, we will have, sometimes we don't understand the question, even when we are the board of any organization, or when we are a CEO of whatever in life can
Hmm.
happen. And as you said, it happens also when you are on your own mother tongue, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
that's,
Yeah. So yeah, I think it was good. I mean, let's face it. Everyone I've spoken to, and I've spoken to a lot of people in our cohort and other cohorts. Everybody's a bit of a high achiever, you know. Even if we don't, like myself, I don't have a lot of confidence about myself, to be honest. But in reflection, I can see maybe I'm a bit of a learner and a high achiever. And so, of course, we want to be pushed. You know, we are all of that type of mindset. You know, like the let's. You know, if it was easy, I would be a bit. Well, what's the point?
yeah,
You know.
exactly.
You know.
Absolutely. And that was that's interesting that we had this conversation today, right after one of the first big milestones, because
Mm.
now I'm really more energized, even if it was quite demanding, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was a bit worried, to be honest, at the accounting. I found the accounting kind of easy. There was a lot of terminology I didn't know, but really numbers are numbers, and so
Yeah, there
it
are
worked.
formulas and not deep thinking. It's just
Yeah.
applied.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So I thought, oh, maybe what am I in for here? So when
Mm.
it came out, that was much more interesting, and I actually found the economics really fascinating, so yeah, it was a great module, that one for me.
Yes, and to continue on that part, well, accounting was really new for me. I have higher education in international education and economics, so the economic parts was something I already knew in a way, right? I studied. It was 15 years ago, but I studied it and practiced it, and but applied in the context of business, it's totally different. And that's exactly, now I say, okay, I understand perfectly why I wanted to have an MBA and why it is useful. Because to bridge these two things, the knowledge, and that's the same with accounting. It's one way of being an accountant. It's another way of using accounting to understand how is your business doing, right?
Wow, that's very insightful. I didn't think about it like that, but you're absolutely right. We're not here to learn to be accountants or to be economists, and it is different. That's true. That is quite different. I think a lot of things are like that. Like when I went to school for music, and a lot of the people that I studied with, they were good musicians or understood the theory well, but they couldn't go on stage and play.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
know.
facing our vulnerability and limitations, and as you said, also the idea, and I struggle a little bit with the term of high achievers, because that's a bit of
Oh yeah.
putting oneself. I'm not criticizing. I
Yeah.
feel the same, right? But then I say yes, definitely we are hard workers, because whatever to arrive to such a level, we have at least a lot of studies and work experience and some kind of level. That is something that is quite, at least the merit of the energy implication is correct. For the rest, it's also depends on how you want to do it, and that's what I really like with the MBA, oriented about facing the reality, and the hardships of reality. And it's all about what one of the things that really interests me. I'm passionate about what constitute leadership,
Mm.
and these links are so important. Yes, being a leader is being good. Maybe it's even being great at some things, but you are not a leader in the sense of a leader that people want to follow if you are, you know, such a great performer that nobody want to play with you. In a
Yeah.
way, if you take the music metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to play with you, even if I'm not so great a guitarist. But then we
Yeah.
can have fun together, or we can make, the best love song we can ever have thought
Right.
about, even if it's not so perfect. And high achievers is a way of saying I'm always above, and I force myself not going there and saying, let's include. Yes, you are a high achiever in something, I'm in another one, and it's not that we are so great in the sense, or we can be great, but we need to be great for others. And that's really one very important point that I wanted to emphasize.
Yeah. I mean, when I say high achievers, to be honest, I don't necessarily think that that's a compliment. Um, because a lot of times we are achieving for achieving's sake. And, so I purposely didn't go into that whole race myself. And sometimes I regret that I didn't achieve as high a status or whatever that I could have. But I think that sometimes it's achievement for achievement's sake. And you see some people who have an incredible, like shocking number of degrees and experiences and this and that. It's intimidating in a sense, but it's also kind of like, well, you don't seem very focused, really.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I don't know. Maybe also I could be just envious, so I don't know.
Well, that's quite interesting insight what you're just explaining. And my main activity now is being an executive coach. So
Hmm.
this is exactly the questions I face with my clients on a daily basis. And you said, well, being a high achiever is not necessarily a compliment. Well, yes, let's play a little time the devil's advocate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And high achievers, it's never enough. So that's
Mm-hmm.
people that are lacking. We are lacking something. We need to prove, always to prove something. That's a huge energy, right? Energy expenditure, but it has its bright side, because I spend so much energy, or I have so many degrees, or I work so hard in my corporation or my work, that I achieve things, and I am a high achiever. And it's like that's for being the devil's do. Then if you go on something more holistic or more balanced, then it's like having a huge head and very tiny neck and arms and legs. And the goal of being a leader, you need to have both. And that's very often that what we don't think about, because you are successful because you meet your targets and you work hard and you have your degree, and that's only half of the way, because you are successful if you are able to inspire other people, and if you are able to bring people together. And that's one of the reasons why I was eager to speak with you, because that's one of the elements that by definition lacks in Quantic. That's the physical community. There is a lot of things they are doing great, trying hard to have that community. But when we are, I mean, a high achiever is alone, and a real leader is someone that is with people, together with people, and leads them, but very often do the work with them. So a high achiever is very isolated. And in order to become a leader, a high achiever need to work against his own high achieving in order to allow others to come in and to play in that orchestra. He may be, the chief,
Right.
maybe,
Yeah.
but not even.
That's interesting. For me, and this gets to the question that I want to ask you. But for me, when I took the MBA, I started the MBA, and there was somebody on whatever LinkedIn or Twitter or something like this, and he was saying, "Oh, you don't need to have an MBA. 90% of what you learn in an MBA you can learn in these books." And I said, actually, you're totally wrong. 100% of what you learn in an MBA you can learn from books, of course.
Yeah.
But because for me, the goal wasn't what I was going to learn, but it was who I was going to meet.
Yes.
And, I live kind of on the edge of a tiny town in northern Japan. Who am I going to meet? The only way I can do a rice farmer, the only way I can meet is like this. And that's what appealed to me about Quantic. So yes, it misses the physicality, but on the other hand, it gives those of us who can't do the physicality an opportunity.
And you are a living example of things that can be done. And your initiative is a personal one. It's not the one that is embedded. It might have been embedded, whatever. It could be a great idea in that way. But when it comes from within, that is collective high achievement in a way, right? It's about allowing other not to shine, but just to exist, bringing them together. And that's really something that I found really, when I read it, what a great idea. I think I should have thought myself about it, right? And that's really great to have that. And in a way, I am not in a similar situation, but I live in the southern part of Italy, in a very small village in the olive groves. It's like paradise, but it's quite isolating, right? But I can work, and I work full time from there, and have my seminars and so on. But in order to have that sense of community, there is something that we need to do. And maybe, as we are both only 3 months in it, right? Yet it might build with time, with such initiatives, but then with other elements, because that when I was preparing for that discussion, I also thought, well, there are so many things we can do in order to be physically closer, even when we are distant. And it's also how the world works today, because in whatever company you are, maybe you live in a big city, but you don't always have like-minded or like-minded oriented people that want to share things with you, or want just to think about things or have projects. And for the part about what is the use of an MBA, while Quantic, it's about technology. And that's one element which is very important for me. In the domain I'm working in, executive coaching, I want to be. I was a CEO. I work in internationally, so I want to bring people together, but I need to do it in the new modern way. And I'm quite optimistic that after meeting the people, having such discussion, but also with the teaching and the learning, something will come out that will bring me the answers. What kind of entrepreneurship model, or what kind of app or programming or needs to be done in order to make my vision or my role here as an executive coach more impactful for the people that want to have it.
So that kind of leads right into what I kind of like my big first question, really, that we haven't even started on, is at this point in your career, I mean, you're not, no offense, you're not a young man and you've had a lot of experiences. So why now take an MBA?
Yeah, that's that's the question I'm asking myself. That all, my family is asking, why now? It's time to to retire. Yes, well, first, I don't feel very old, at least internally, and I am an avid learner. So um, that's connecting with the high achieving, but I don't do that for the sake of achieving, because I want to learn. And I dis- I had higher education, but when I was 40, I decided to change career and go in psychology after being in economics and international relations, as working as a reporter, as a journalist, as a writer. I still do partly that, but having that shift opened me really a new world, and it's so refreshing, right? And I was also a CEO for 15 years of an international adventure online agency, which was at the beginning of these kind of services. And well, the MBA is exactly the part that's the rope against the parcel that finish it, that makes the links in between everything. And last but not least, yes, we are all getting older, everyone, and it's also a way to get back on what is the real business world today. And with the business and technology and the app and the blockchains and things that are not exactly from my generation. Well, because I'm not in the finances, I'm not exactly on that orientation. So there are a lot of just curiosity and a lot of things to learn to. And last but not least, my clients are all MBA holders. And it was
Interesting.
also a way for me to get closer to their world, to understand also better. Because my job is understanding people and helping them understand themselves better. So that is like one more tool, understanding also the pressure they're in. Because for what I understand, also coming from the real world, it's very nice coaching or life coaching, leadership coaching, but there is reality, and reality is very tough, and it's very challenging, and it's very unfair, and it's never idealistic. So we need to find that way in choosing between two bad solutions and not choosing the worst one. And very often we think, when we speak about learning and coaching and leadership and career, about the best one, but very often that's and here the MBA is also on that part, on being able to go to the reality. Things are changing fast. There is AI, there are a lot of technologies, and I wanted to get back on that, also to catch up in a way, not to
Yeah.
stay behind with very good, nice, comforting ideas about what is a leader, what is a good manager or CEO, but also get back on the reality.
And I think that adding those new technologies and new ways of doing things, it kind of, well, like what you're saying, it kind of excites us, to do something slightly different, or to, even if we don't do something different, I think the fuel comes in and kind of, oh, there's this, even if one thing comes in.
That's exactly it. And we had that with the presentation, both of
Yeah.
us, right? Something that, oh, right. In a way, I like it. I didn't know even that I liked, that I did like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. So how did you get into being a executive coach? Like, how does that happen?
I used to say that my life, I speak for myself, was always arriving at crossroads, and not places where I really wanted to arrive, but I happened to be, and then to choose. And I'm passionate about cultures, languages. I'm passionate about explaining the world to people with teaching, with reporting. I was a reporter in the Middle East. Uh, on both sides, I understand what hard and harsh life is. And here, doing all that work, I was always confronted um, with narratives. And that's a word that really struck me. It happened almost like an aha moment, and like a religious time, because it was when I was living in Jerusalem. And I say, oh my God, these are two visions that just get conflicted. It seems so obvious when you say it, but then you understand and say, oh, and then you understand that there is no right one.
Mm-hmm.
They are just narratives that explain the word for whatever your point of view is. That's the first realization. And then the second is, and now what? Because as a journalist, as a reporter, as a scientist, you want to look for the truth or something closer to the truth or something that is correct. And then that becomes a very, 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 very difficult. And I wanted to have that tool. That's why I went to psychology, to understand how to assess what is right, what is
Yeah.
wrong. Because whatever narrative we have is correct, right? And then I discovered that when you get divorced, you have a narrative. You have a narrative of that. You have a narrative about why you are a high achiever. We just did that at the beginning of today's discussion. And these moments, then I wanted to have that tool. And then I understood that they are in high demand for people. Because when you arrive to a very high level in your career on success, then you might arrive as me, as with this aha moment, and and then what is the story I'm telling myself? It worked quite well, but now what's next? And then or now what's next, when, because I'm getting older and I know my children are away, I got divorced or whatever, or my company is changing. And that these are these moments that it's very important that we have the tools to rebuild a true but new narrative that will help live a better life. I hope it's clear. It's a quite complex approach,
Yeah.
but that's the key element of making leaders
So is
presenting.
like being an executive coach, is it 50% for, let's say, 50% being a therapist?
That's the question we all say, and we coaches are not therapists, in the sense that we don't fix broken
Right.
mental challenges, right? And that happen because we all face hardship in life. But in between being really, being ill and not healthy, there is a very big gap. And that's why the word coach is nice. You go to the gym with a coach because you want to get better. Not that you are sick, but you need really to get better. And that's exactly the same kind of way for the mental health. And of course, well, when you go on high achiever and leaders, there are always a reason we do something, right?
Yeah.
And this morning I was reading an article presenting the letter that the father of Winston Churchill sent to him when he eventually got accepted in this high achieving school. I don't remember the name. And this letter was, I mean, awful to read. That is a father saying to his son every line, you are a loser and you all will be a loser, and I will never congratulate you to do that because you didn't even do well, right? And finishing, mom sends you hugs, whatever. So that was shocking. And then
Yeah.
you see that guy that faced one of the hardest time in humanity, how he did it. And then you say, oh my God. And what if this letter, or this so-called bad father in today's word, is the reason why he faced the Nazism and then the Cold War and everything in whatever way. And that's exactly the position you are in. And say, where is coaching? Where is therapy? And then that also using that energy to achieve great things. And it's not always good energy that allows you to achieve good things, but you need to be conscious of it. And then if it's a fuel, we can use it to do great and good things. So in a way, to make it very short and simplistic, thank you, Winston Churchill father, because thanks to you, we live in a world where it's a bit better to live
Right.
than it would have been otherwise.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I've always been fascinated by people, and one of the reasons I left I'm Canadian, and I left Canada when I was 26, I think, because I thought, oh, there's a big world out there, and I engineered this life where I could move around and live well, but also see lots of things and meet lots of people, because I'm always very fascinated by people's motivations, and people's actions, I guess, for want of a better word. And so that I pursued a lot of things that led me into that, and I was always working in a way, because I work professionally in software, but I was always kind of on the secret team, because I have no problem talking to people. So I was always working directly, with like the director or something like this. And I was kind of like this team that would go in and do things when their IT infrastructure couldn't
Yep.
do it. And there's a whole, area of work like that, because a lot of these people can't get things done because of the bureaucracy or whatever, but also because I was there to talk to them.
Yes.
And I ended up into a lot of really kind of strange relationships with directors of companies who didn't have anybody to talk to,
Yeah.
who was knowledgeable in some way, but not invested in what the outcome of our conversation was,
Yes.
And so I would spend countless hours in restaurants with directors of companies, and I was so fortunate and fascinated by that. But it also made me think I really don't want to work in a big company.
Yes.
You
So
know?
you are working almost like a coach, and you
Yeah.
point a very central thing, that when you are a high achiever, and that's the beginning of today's conversation between us, you are alone. And that's why I said it's very important as a leader that you build a system not to be alone.
Mm.
Yes, just work and achieving high standards, you are alone. And if we take the parallel about Winston Churchill. Not that I'm a great fan of it, but I understand. As a leader, it's interesting. He had to take, as many other, very difficult decision. And when you have to take life important decision, and that's the role of many leaders or high managers, at least in business terms, you are alone, right?
Yeah.
As we were when we were doing our presentation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Interesting. Yes. Yeah.
But
And I
having
mean,
a place, and that's why executive coaches are useful. It's a place where you can exchange that. And these kind of conversation we are having someone that also make you understand yourself better, not telling you what to do, but understand yourself better, so you can use properly the energy
hmm,
instead of wasting it for the wrong reasons.
hmm. That's, yeah. I mean, the more I hear about it, the more I sound like I feel like, oh, I would like to be I think I have some kind of experience of that. And I guess point of it is, you want, for a business coach, as an executive, you want to talk to somebody, and this, you've already said this, I'm just finally figuring it out, but you take the MBA because that gives you a level that you can more easily talk to them on. You want to be able to talk to them on
Or
these,
understand them better. Yes. Yeah.
at their level. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I spent so long, I spent 10, God, more than 10 years working in the sports betting world. And the guys at the top there, it's, well, because it's borderline illegal, there's always,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
it was the greatest 10 years because you met crazy people, but there was so much money. And so they had such a responsibility. And so I was doing these jobs and going out to dinner with these guys because they just wanted somebody to talk to, um, you know, kind of in the business, but not in the business. And
Yes, we
so,
have no specific relationship, not an employee, not a member of the family, someone without any specific relationship, right?
yeah,
That's very important.
yeah. And somebody who, it always seemed like I was kind of in their age group, you know? And so it was interesting. I think age has a lot to do with it. And I always get, now that I'm of my age, it always
But
bothers
okay,
me. It always bothers me. I know it shouldn't. When somebody in their 20s or early 30s is like a business coach or something like that, I'm like, or, giving me life advice. And I'm like, well, when I
Yeah.
think back to when I'm in my 20s and 30s, I mean, maybe there are exceptional people who will be capable of that, but I do think that there's a certain amount of time you have to have behind you for you to realize, that's not really important.
This is a very interesting point, and the direction the world is going is not exactly this one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, well, we always can say that we are making from a virtue from a necessity because we both get older, and
That's right.
but I really know that the way I think, the way I see the world, the way I understand the world and the people now, it's not the same like the one I had when I was 20 and I decided to go and live in Russia forever,
Mm.
right? So these are totally different. However, all these events made me more ready to face all the complexities. And I think in order to, in a way, to wrap up, but at the same also with an MBA, things are complex, and we live in a time where we want to have very simplistic black and white
Yes.
ideas, solution, and then it's not by chance that I spoke about choosing between two bad solution, because in our mind we want to have the good and the bad, but very often in life you have only the bad and the worse,
Yes. Yes.
and you need to choose which one, and that's very painful. And in the business, and you said that with the experiences you are having in the betting market, that's but in business it's always a kind of borderline. That's what business is.
Yeah.
And so we need to be able to be comfortable with this uncomfort zone and
Yeah.
be true to yourself, because that's very important to have some kind of moral and virtue. That's at least in the world I'm living in.
Yeah. I definitely think so. And I think you're absolutely right. Everything now has to be black and white, and it's never black and white, and I'm always shocked when people think that it is, but oh well, you know, we've had the benefit of, we are lived in the best time. I think we saw an interesting shift in the world during our lifetime.
I genuinely hope that the younger generation will say the same for themselves. That's the best way to
Yeah.
evolve in life, saying, oh, we had the best possible life, not saying that we missed or lacked something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Even if we had our fair due of challenges.
Right. Yeah. So what's next? What, you're still working, obviously, and doing the MBA. Is there something coming up that you would like to plug on my podcast?
Well, I definitely would like to continue working as a coach and a leadership coach, because I really believe that there is a need, and I see it. Not, it's more than I believe. I see that need. So I have a website with my name, vincentstocklin.com, where I have a specific program to build meaning and purpose, whether you are a leader, a father, or a woman, and you can choose to rebuild this narrative. And there are tools and steps to build it properly in order to make it instrumental for yourself on your own terms. It's not about having a one fits all solution, but it's about having your own blueprint. So then you can move a step at a time, facing, getting older, having children leaving, or also, as it's often the case in the business, well, you get older and you have younger ones that are maybe smarter, faster, more agile, whatever, right? And then you need to also find your place with that. That's why it's so important. And the next step after the MBA will be definitely getting back in the business world in a way, but with that hat of coach, because there is a big need in corporation to have people that have the right tool to make the things done in teams in the corporation, because we also see, and that's the positive part of what we are, the time we are living in, making good money is not enough yet. Now you need to have something else. You need to have a good story, and now the story need to be true, because people will look after you, right? Everyone has a
Yes.
camera and a microphone on themselves, so That's very important. So that's the direction I'm going to be there to go. Hard, not so comfortable, but very, very curious and really enthusiastic to go there to see where it's kind of difficult and not so easy to find answers.
Oh, that sounds exciting. I think it's fascinating what you do. And you must get to see so much, collect so many experiences from so many interesting people.
A lot of humanity, but I like, I'm part of it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not black and white, I'm black and red. So that's because of the passion, right? But
Right.
that's in between. They are the whole world of humanity. And
Right.
I really appreciate that you actively decided to make it out for all of us with your project with Quantic and what you are doing with your podcast. That's really something that I look up to and really admire.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I figured this is the easiest way to get to know more people more deeply, so it's a very selfish thing I'm doing.
And that's like in business and in economics, right? And it benefits everyone.
That's right. Yeah.
The invisible hand of the podcasting.
Great. Thank you so much, Vincent.
Same to you. It was nice.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's my interview with Vincent Stocklin. I'm trying to come up with other words than interesting and fascinating because I seem to be saying those an awful lot when I talk about my guests, but let's face it, they are. And especially, he's so thoughtful, Vincent. He was somebody who I wish I could have by my side as my executive coach as I go through this journey of entrepreneurship into the future. Really great guy. He's so positive, but also thoughtful and still manages to be fun on top of that. Maybe I'll be able to come and see him in Italy. Oh, I just thought about that. Anyway, stick around, like, subscribe, bell notification, more interviews, more talk about my journey on this EMBA, and it's, a lifelong pursuit of learning like we talk about with Vincent. Thanks for watching. See you soon.